Clemson basketball just had an electric Elite Eight run, but can Brad Brownell prove to be consistent as this program continues to grow?
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Clemson podcast. I'm your host, John Bivens. You can follow me over on Twitter or X right here at I am John Bivens. Hey, thanks so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and over on YouTube. And we're grateful to be a part of the Locked On Network, where it is your team every day. Here on the Locked On Clemson podcast, we are all sports, all passion, all of the time. Today is Wednesday, March 1st. Yesterday, we talked about the bright future of Clemson basketball, right? We went through and we talked about specific games from past seasons to back up our takes, and we talked about some of the why we're hopeful for Clemson basketball moving forward. Well, today, we're going to look at the other side of that. We're going to go through and talk about what is our biggest worry when it comes to Clemson basketball, and the answer to that is Brad Brownell. We're worried about his consistency, worried about his coaching, and worried about his recruiting ability. So today, we're going to dive into all of those. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off, we got to talk more about Monopoly Go. This fast-paced game lets you team up with your friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes, such as unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on the Google Play and the App Store. Game on. So Brad Brownell, when it comes to Clemson basketball, and how we feel about the team moving forward, our biggest worry is not whether or not PJ Hall is going to go to the NBA or not. Our biggest worry is not is Chase Hunter going to come back for a fifth year. Our biggest worry is not who we're landing in transfer portal. All those matters, but those are very immediate matters, right? Those are very much issues that they matter for this upcoming season. Overall, Clemson basketball, we're worried about Brad Brownell. Before this past season, there was a lot of people on the fence about Brad Brownell. I'd say probably 3/4 of the fans were over here and extend Brad, he's awesome. Other side were over here and they were like, fire Brad. Right now, there's even a Twitter page called Fire Brad. He's a little harsh. I don't push that page. I don't push his feelings, but he's over here, fire Brad. When it came to us, my opinion, John Bivens' opinion, I might have leaned more towards his fire side. I did not think that he was the coach for the future. And then this season happened, and he made this amazing Elite Eight run. Awesome. That's great, right? We're glad he made that run, and it was amazing. It was one of the funnest times to be a Clemson basketball fan that I've remembered in my life. But some people have went from fire Brad, and they've went over to extend him. They've immediately was like, I made it to Elite Eight, extend him. I'm not like that. That's not where I'm at. I'm still not over here. I'm right in the middle. I'm right straight in the middle where I don't think we should fire him. I don't think we should extend him. I think there are some worries that come about his coaching ability that we've got to straighten up, we've got to identify, we've got to figure out before we can move forward with him effectively, before we can make the decision to long-term go with him. So we're going to dive into those three things today that I think if Brad fixes these, if he can show us that he can do these three things, then I'm good to extend him. If not, let's find somebody that can. And so we're going to start off. The first area of Brad that we're worried about has to be his consistency. It's got to be the consistency of Brad Brownell. When I mention that, here's what I'm talking about. So Brad Brownell has been a coach since 2002. He coached at UNC Wilmington for 4 seasons, went to Wright State in 2006, coached for 4 seasons, went to Clemson in 2010, and has been there for 14 seasons. That's a total of 22 years as a head basketball coach. 22 years. Long time, right? In those 22 years, do you know how many times he's made the NCAA tournament 2 years in a row? 2. I lied to you. One. See, even two, you're like, really? Just two? No, one. In his 22 years of coaching, he's only made back-to-back years of NCAA tournaments one time. When it comes to UNC Wilmington, he made it 2 times in those 4 years, in 02 and then in 05. And then after that 05 season, he went to Wright State and made it the only time at Wright State, made it to in 2006, his first year there. So he made it last year at UNC Wilmington and first year at Wright State. That's the only time he's ever made it to the tournament in back-to-back years. All 3 times he made it, to both with UNC Wilmington and with Wright State, he lost in the first round. So then let's go to Clemson. Let's talk about his results. You're like, oh, those games don't matter. Okay, let's go on to Clemson. He's been there since 2010. He's had 14 years as the head coach. 14 years. In those 14 years, he made the tournament his first year, went 22-12, lost in the first round of the tournament, 9-7 in the ACC. He took over that team from Oliver Purnell, who was a great coach. He left Clemson. He wasn't fired. He wasn't great, but he was a good coach. He made it to the team with that team that he inherited from Oliver Purnell. He did not make the NCAA tournament after that 2010 until 2017. It was 7 years, 6 years, 7 years, 6 seasons in between of no tournaments between his first and his second tournament appearance. One of the appearances, first one was eliminated the first round. His second one, he made it to the Sweet 16. Then he made it to the NIT second round of the NIT. Then was the COVID year where a postseason was canceled. And then in 2020, he made it back to the tournament for the third time. 2021, made it back to the third time and lost in the first round. Didn't make it in 21-22. 22-23 was the year that everybody said we should have made it, but he didn't. And he ended up going to the NIT, lost in the first round. And then this past year, he made it to the Elite Eight. So all of that is saying, okay, there's no consistency there. Some people are like, oh yeah, well, you say he's not consistent, but yes, he's only made it 4 times in 14 years, but he's made it 3 in the past 7. 3 in the past 7 is still less than half the time he's making the tournament. That's not okay for a university with as much money, with as much skill, with as much knowledge, with as much talent and potential as Clemson University. Look, people say all the time we're a football school. I get that. A lot of fans are Clemson fans because of football. But we have the potential to be so much better than we are in basketball. And Brad Brownell can just not prove that he's consistent. When it comes down to his overall record, he's had he's had 6 seasons with 20-plus wins. Not bad, 6 out of 14. You're happy with that, right? He's had only 5 years in the ACC where he has had double-digit wins in the ACC, so 5 out of 14. His overall record, non-conference with Clemson, his overall record as Clemson is 265-189. So he wins about 58% of the games since he's been with Clemson. Conference, though, and this is the number that kills me. In conference, he's 128-126. This past year, he was 11-9. So in the first 13 years as the head coach at Clemson basketball, he was 50-50, or won half of the games literally in the ACC. He struggles to be consistent. He's consistently mid. So in order for us to have faith in Brad, in order for me to get on board with extending him, with being faithful as him as the coach, why am I reading you all this stuff? Well, it's because he struggles to be consistent. And before we can move forward with extending him, with saying, yeah, he's our coach, 100%, no doubt, he's got to prove that he can be consistent. That's worry number 1. Worry number 1, can he be consistently good? He's got to make it to the tournament back-to-back years as Clemson. He makes it to the tournament next year, different story. I will come back and I will say I was wrong right now, or I won't say I was wrong. I'll say, okay, he proved me that he can be consistent. He's got to be consistent. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is some of his coaching abilities. We're going to dive into that and so much more in just a moment.
It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your number one place to bet on every game. I'm telling you, folks, FanDuel is number one sportsbook in America, so you shouldn't waste any time trying any of those other apps. So here's what I need you to do. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. Yes, I said $150. That's $150 win or lose. And I'm telling you, can bet on anything because right now is the perfect time. Like I mentioned, the playoffs going on. NHL playoffs is going on. Baseball is going crazy right now. So you can bet on anything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks and much, much more. All on the app that's super safe, secure, and super easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on, LOCKEDON, and make your first bet an automatic win because FanDuel is America's number one sportsbook.
Welcome back to the Locked On Clemson podcast. Hey, so worry number one when it comes to Brad, consistency. Number two, the second worry when it comes to Brad is his coaching. Sometimes he makes some coaching decisions, and he's got a habit of making these coaching decisions that really has me worried. It's really got me freaking out a little bit about it. And so here's what I mean. There's two aspects of his game that really I'm like, really? That's what we're doing? Number one is I think he struggles with timeouts. We've kind of talked about this in the past a little bit. I think he really struggles with timeouts. I think sometimes it feels like he thinks he can carry him with him to the Nets game. I can't count how many times that use it or lose it timeout in the first half he'll go to halftime with. Or he'll end the game with 2 or 3 or 1 or 2 timeouts left over with his team. I don't understand. It's a free time that you can use multiple times to get your team collected, to stop a momentum break, to give them rest, to make a sub that he just doesn't use. Let's talk about specific games. All right. Let's back this up. Let's back up our argument. Last year, NC State played at Clemson, right? It was a rough game, back and forth. It was exciting. We were there. That was one of the games that we wanted to sit with the fans. We weren't on Media Row. We still went to the post conference, but we decided to sit with the fans because sitting with the fans is a lot of fun. We had 2 of our friends from church sit in front of us that were huge Wolfpack fans. Beside me was my wife, my amazing wife, who is a Clemson fan by adoption. She was a UT fan. I married her through that, but she's a Clemson fan. And then behind us was 2 of our other friends that were Wolfpack fans. We were surrounded by Wolfpack fans, and for some reason the section we were in was mainly a Wolfpack fan. So the fans are going crazy. The game's crazy. It goes back and forth, back and forth. We had a run. They had a run. We were up big. They came back. Last time out, we're down by 1. We get the ball with 9 seconds left. It's our ball with 9 seconds. Brad Brownell has a timeout that he can use. Chase Hunter can get the ball, dribble to half court, call a timeout, have 7 seconds left to have Brad Brownell show his offensive skill. You got Dick Bender on the side, who's a great offensive-minded coach. You could easily draw something up on offense. You've got that availability. But instead, what does he do? He lets Chase Hunter have free reign, have free will to go out and make the decision to go and do whatever. Chase, you're in charge. I'm not drawing up a play. Just go live. So the ball, NC State scored. He gives the ball to the ref, or gives the ball to Chase Hunter, or to Clemson, inbounds it. Chase Hunter runs up the court, takes a very hard contested layup. Granted, Ian Shefflin was wide open to the right of him. He could have easily dished it off to Ian Shefflin, but he didn't. He took a shot. He missed it. We lost. If Brad draws a timeout there, he has the ability to have P.J. Hall, Ian Shefflin, Chase Hunter, Joe Girard, and then pick a 5th player. Chauncey Wiggins, Jack Clark, Dylan Hunter. Pick a player, right? I mean, Josh Beadle, R.J. Godfrey. You have so many players you could have put in there to draw up a play. And look, NC State's a good defensive team, right? They're all right, but they had DJ Horn and they have DJ Burns. Outside of those 2 players, there really wasn't much. So you have P.J. Hall going to get open. You have Ian Shefflin could be by the block. You got Joe Girard who can make a 3, and you have Chase Hunter who can make an open shot. There's 4 players right there. There's no way they're stopping all 4 of them. You have a good passer like Jack Clark or Dylan Hunter inbound the ball, and it's there. Draw up a play. Take time to draw it up. Use that timeout to do that. Don't just let it go free willy. He did. We lost the game, and we lost it, and it hurt. That happened 2 other times this year as well. And both times, one of the times we lost, one of the times was early on in the Asheville Classic tournament, and we won that. But neither time did he drop a play. Brad Brownell has a timeout to use close situations late on to help him advance the game, and he just doesn't do it. Sometimes he just doesn't call those, and I don't understand. Also at timeouts, when it comes to college basketball, one of the best parts of the game is the crowd, right? It's amazing hearing the crowd go, right, right, the crowd going crazy. When you're an away team at Duke, at Wake Forest, at UNC Chapel Hill, at Boston College, at Syracuse, when you're at these away games, when you're especially playing the ACC, the crowd gets into it. The crowd goes wild. And a lot of times a coach's mindset, a coach's what they'll do as a coach, they'll call a timeout to provide a sense of relief to try to get the crowd out of it a little bit, especially after a big play, right? When we play, I remember when we played Duke, Jared McCain hit a three, went down, we got our shot blocked, went back down, Kyle Philpowski scored, and then so immediately Duke's going crazy, right? Their crowd were screaming. Would have been a great time. Call timeout. We just gave up 5 points that in a very close game. The Cameron Crazies are going crazy. We should have called a timeout in order to calm them down, to get our guys back focused, to take the momentum out a little bit. Does Brad do that? No. He lets it play and he pushes it on. So many times he lets a timeout. He could use a timeout to kind of help the momentum die down, to help us players get back into it, and he won't. He decides to wait till the media timeout every 4 minutes. Some of his coaching decisions with timeouts, I know it seems minuscule, but when you add up time after time after time after time, it's a big deal. The second coaching decision and coaching ability that really has us worried here on Locked On Clemson is sometimes I feel like he struggles to coach his team out of a slump. I'm going to talk about three different instances when I'm focusing on this. Number one is he struggles sometimes when it comes to a shooting slump. Multiple times this year, we went through a slump where we just couldn't hit a shot. And granted, that's going to happen. You're going to have times where you just can't hit a shot. Our first UNC game, we talked about it last time. We lost that game by 10 points. Should have been like 5, but free throw time, garbage time, right? We went 1 for 18 from the three. Brad Brownell could not find some way to get our teams understanding how to shoot a three-point, how to make a shot. He struggled to coach us out of that. The second thing I'm going to point out is our first Miami game, the first game against Miami we played. We showed up and we looked ugly. We looked like a D3 school playing the NBA team, right? It was ugly, and Brad couldn't coach us through that. That Miami game was one of 3 games where we went on a 3-game losing streak to start the ACC, and UNC was a part of that. 3-game losing streak to start the ACC. It was ugly. Brad couldn't coach us out of that. There are so many times where it looks like we needed Brad to spark the team to get the team hyped up, and he couldn't. After that 3-game losing streak, we went and we won one, we lost one. We won one, we lost one. We won one, lost one. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Our biggest run was in March Madness after ACC started. Our biggest win streak was found in March Madness when we made it to the Elite Eight, which win when it counts, right? But at the same time, he struggled to get the consistent wins, to break the slump, to break the cycle. He struggled through there. The third point, and this is the third thing about coaching out of a slump, is look at Alabama in the tournament. When we played Alabama in the tournament, we've proved we could beat them, right? We beat them by slowing them down earlier on in the season. We played them now, and granted, Alabama was just hitting everything in that game. But we shot 30% from the three, and that's because we made a lot later on when it was almost out of reach already, right? Brad struggles to coach us out of a slump. So, with that being said, that's our second thing that we're worried about. We're worried about if Brad can be consistent, and we're worried about if Brad and some of his coaching abilities, coaching decisions, such as using timeouts and coaching out of a slump. When we come back, we're going to hit the third point, and that is worried about transfer and recruiting when it comes to Brad Brownell. We'll see you soon. All right, game off. We got to pause here, and we got to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with your friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. You can get unique stickers to trade with your friends. You can complete different albums for big prizes. You can get cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. You can also get hilarious emojis to taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win, or even rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench, go download it now on Google Play or the App Store. Again, Monopoly Go is free on the Google Play and the App Store. Game on. Brad, we're worried about his consistency. We're worried about Brad's coaching. And then the final point of what we're worried about when it comes to Clemson basketball and Brad Brownell, we're worried about his recruiting and transfer. And some of y'all, as soon as I said that, y'all are like, yo, are you serious right now? We just got Joe Girard. Yes, we did. We got PJ Hall. Yes, we did. Yes, you are exactly right. We do have some. This year was amazing. Let's go back to point one. Consistency. Consistent. What has he done consistently when it comes to Clemson? Not have a great recruiting class. What has he done consistently when it comes to Clemson basketball? Not pull in the biggest transfers. He's not being consistently good. This year was a great year, all right? Let's mark that down. If you're listening, I'm admitting Brad Brownell looked like a Coach of the Year candidate sometimes in 23-24. He looked great. Consistently, what are we worried about? Worried about consistent, we're worried about coaching, and we're worried about recruiting and transfers. There's so many times where we're worried about his recruiting and transfer skill. Do you know Brad Brownell at Clemson has never had a top 30 class? He's never landed a top recruit in the nation. Look at Cade Tyson. We talked about it yesterday in our Tracking Tuesday. Cade Tyson, he dropped the ball with. That is, you coached his brother to an NBA getting drafted, playing successful, and you can't even get him to come visit Clemson? What? He didn't even take an official visit. He dropped the ball. Also, this year with some recruits, we lost some good players in the transfer portal. R.J. Godfrey just announced today that he's going to Clemson, or he's going to Georgia. Jack Clark going to VCU. Josh Beadle going to another ACC school. We lost 3 good players. I mean, granted, I think R.J. Godfrey was the biggest loss there. Jack Clark, I'd already said it. I think he's the MVP of this past season, but you can kind of expect him to leave. Josh Beadle is an energy guy, didn't play a lot of minutes, but still, he lost those 3, which are good. You're also possibly losing really instrumental players, right? PJ Hall, Chase Hunter. You can't control that. They're going to the NBA. They graduated out, right? But the problem is he hasn't really recruited or brought anybody in to truly replace them. I know he's got a couple good players when it comes to different players he's brought in the portal. I get that. I totally get that. But the players he's bringing in don't match what he's there. It doesn't match where he's at with what we lost. The skill coming in does not equal the skill going out. And that's the process. That's the problem, is that right now we have great team. We had a great team this past year. We had an absolutely great team this past year, 100%. I'm with you. But the problem is the skill that's leaving does not match the skill that's coming back. Right now, only transfer we've got a 4-star transfer, that Victor Locken, who I think is a good player. He's a big guy. He's the center coming from Cincinnati. I do think he's good. And we got him, which is exciting, which is really good. We also got a shooting guard. We got Jaden Zachary from Boston College. He's a 3-star recruit. He's a good recruit. Neither one of those players match Josh Beadle, Jack Clark, R.J. Godfrey, Joe Girard, P.J. Hall, Chase Hunter. We're losing more than we get. We've also got some great prospects coming in, right? We've got Ace Thomas. We've got We've got 3 really good prospects coming in, and we've got a higher ranked recruiting class, top 40. It doesn't match the ability. What we're getting in does not match what we're losing. We're recruiting and transfers are struggling. It's struggling there. So that's what we're worried about. We're worried about consistently, worried about coaching, and we're worried about, can he truly bring in the players for Clemson to be good? Can he truly bring in the players for us to be consistently good when it comes to recruiting and transfers in? I think Cade Thomas, we should have got him, or Cade Tyson, we should have got him. That's a big drop. There's others that we should have brought in, and he didn't. So that's why we're worried about that. So what's the solution? Remember, fire, extend in the middle. I think he needs to be on a year-to-year basis. If I'm Graham Neff, I'm not nowhere near him. Graham Neff probably ain't listening, but if I'm Graham Neff, I'm putting Brad Brownell on a year-to-year basis for a couple years until he proves he can consistently win and make the tournament. He's not going to make dumb coaching decisions, and he can bring in a better recruiting and transfer class. Until he does those three things, he's on a year-to-year basis. If he fails those, if he doesn't make the tournament 2 years in a row, move on. If he makes the tournament, stay there. Have him have the chance to prove these decisions. Until that happens, we're going to struggle. Until he has the chance to prove this, until he truly proves these three things wrong, we're not ready to extend him. So that's our thoughts. That's what we're worried about Brad. We are going to start a new segment on Wednesdays called Worried Wednesdays, where we're going to talk about things that we are worried about in all of Clemson sports. It just happened that today's episode was all worried. That was the theme of the episode. But on Wednesdays, we do have that new segment kicking off, I guess, next week of Worried Wednesday. But all of that being said, that is going to wrap up this edition of the Locked On Clemson podcast. Tomorrow's episode, we're going to dive back into football. The spring transfer window has ended. We're going to dive into that and much more. Hey, let me know your thoughts on today's topics. Where are you at on Brad Brownell? Where do you stand there? Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter over at I am John Bivens. Reach out to email if you want, thetigerwire@gmail.com. I'd love to hear feedback on everything we talked about. If you haven't, make sure you're subscribed to this podcast. Wherever you're listening to it, hit that follow button. Give me 5 stars if you're enjoying it. That would be a huge help. Subscribe to us. That way, once you subscribe, once you follow, this can be your first listen every day so you can stay up to date on all Clemson sports here on Locked On Clemson. We can't wait to see you on tomorrow's episode, but until then, keep that Tiger pride alive and roaring, and as always, go Tigers.